Hi everybody, I'm back again. I know it's been a very long time, but I've been working on quite a long book and it's taken me several months to get, which is why I've not made any videos until now. But the book's finished and is out on many platforms, formats, whatever you like to call them, and I'll describe roughly what the book is about. Actually, let me say, first of all, in case you notice, I've lost a tooth. Okay, I was eating some almonds the other day and a tooth came out with the almonds. So I've made an appointment with the dentist to get it fixed, but at the moment I haven't got the tooth back, so there we are. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to describe the book to you, and then I'm going to talk to you about the Rendlesham Forest Incident, and then I'm going to, at the end, tell you about a book that I got from a library and describe, because I found it quite interesting how it was all described to me, how they made the books and so on in another dimension. Anyway, the whole of this comes from the Great White Brotherhood, as usual. None of it's from me at all. Anyway, a new book. It's called Linking with the Fourth Dimension, and it's a number of chapters. I think there's 33 chapters, and virtually each chapter deals with an aspect of some emotion that's in the fourth dimension that we can link with. Okay? I found the book very interesting, actually. There's also a chapter about fairies and gnomes and elves and things, but virtually all the other chapters are about different emotions like happiness and unhappiness, hate and love, and all sorts of different topics that apparently there's places in the fourth dimension where these emotions are contained in pure form, and we can link with them and draw these emotions, or an aspect of these emotions, a bit of these emotions, we can draw into ourselves and help mould our personalities. And that's what this book is about. If you follow the Great White Brotherhood's teachings, I think you'll find this book interesting. I certainly did, and I learned a lot from it. Okay, so I won't make too much of a fuss about this because I don't want this video to drag on too long. It's called Linking with the Fourth Dimension, and it describes a number of different types of emotions that there are contained in pure form in the fourth dimension that we can link with through our auras and draw an aspect of them, not the full power of it, but at least part of it, into our personalities, and it helps mould our personalities, okay? Right, I'll mention it again at the end, just as a reminder, but that's basically what this video is about, to tell you about this book, which is called Linking with the Fourth Dimension, okay? Now, I thought I'd talk to you about the Rendlesham Forest Incident. Now, I know many of you will know what it's all about, but in England some years ago, there were, I suppose they're still there, I don't know, a couple of American air bases in England, and round about Christmas time, a flying saucer was seen come down in the woods and all the rest of it, and there was quite a hoo-ha about it. And there's an awful lot on the internet, actually, that you can look up if you want. But I spoke to the Great White Brotherhood about this and asked if they could clarify the situation. And I'm going to read exactly what they gave me, okay? And it's entitled The Rendlesham Forest Incident. In 1980, in a forest and in nearby fields in England, a number of strange events occurred, some of which have been accurately reported and some of which are fictitious. We are not accusing anyone involved in the incidents of deliberately lying, but memories can play tricks, and so what people report today may not be literal accounts of the actual events. We must also say that a certain amount of tampering with people's minds took place by certain secret service groups in an attempt to fog the story. We will do our best to describe what actually happened as far as we are able from information contained in the Akashic Record. We must advise anyone who reads or listens to what we are going to say that the Akashic Record only contains events that concerns true living people. Thus, the Akashic Record does not record any event that directly comes from non-living creatures, nor from any machines. If robotic creatures are involved, the Akashic Record would not record their thoughts or actions except as seen through the eyes of humans. Nor does the Akashic Record retain any information from a machine above and beyond what is observed and experienced from a human interacting with that machine. So, although we can report what humans saw or thought they saw, we cannot give the other half of the story, which would be what the E-bends, those are those little grey robots, thought of the events, nor what the machines, the UFOs, reactions to the story was. This obviously causes us to be cautious as to what we say. So I don't know if you understood that. It means that in the Akashic Record, it's only human beings' experiences and thoughts and things that are stored there. Anything that's not human doesn't get recorded, okay? We're not going to relate what various participants have put on record, because anyone who is interested in the story can find virtually all of what people involved saw or thought they saw from internet. We do not need to waste your time and ours reporting the story, which took place over a number of nights. We will assume that you are familiar with the story. And as I said, most of the people that were involved or directly involved told their story on the internet, and you can quite easily find all that information. Before we begin, we will say, however, that the air bases housed secretly a large number of atomic weapons, which was not strictly legal in terms of the Anglo-American treaties of the time. So the people in charge of the bases were very keen to keep the truth about the bases away from any prying eyes. We will also say that there were a large number of security personnel on the bases, of which there was two bases, whose major role was to ensure that no information about the atomic missiles leaked to the public. One can imagine that the reaction of the public to the fact that there were enough nuclear weapons stored on the bases to destroy a large portion of England, if they were sabotaged and thus exploded, they would have been less than enthusiastic if the secret was revealed. So security was paramount in the eyes of those controlling the bases. This is an important part of the story because once it was thought that a UFO was inspecting one of the bases and its weapons, it was realized that publicity concerning the UFO and subsequent events would inevitably leak out to newspapers, and questions would be raised as to why the UFO was concerned with that base. This was a danger because it would be almost inevitable that the truth concerning the large number of atomic bombs stored on the site would come to public attention. The security concerns were many. 1, there were more than the authorized number of bombs on the sites. 2, enemy countries would find this intelligence very interesting. 3, the local population would have been in uproar over the danger not only of an accidental explosion, but also of radiation leakages which would or could harm people, animals, and poison nearby farming land. Thus, we repeat, security was paramount, and so whatever disturbed the security of the area was considered very seriously indeed. We wish also to say that, at that time, the official attitude of both the British and American authorities was that either UFOs did not exist or that they were not a threat to security, despite the fact that at least America had a number of downed craft that they had recuperated from a number of countries, plus a few E-bends, the little grey robots, either living or dead, and were actively back-engineering UFOs, sometimes with the help of these E-bends. All this was kept strictly secret from the general public, and by and large still is. Now, to look at the incidents, we will not mention names, nor will we become too involved with the actual events, because, as we said, the story, both in a general and in a personal sense of the personnel involved, is readily available on the internet. We will try to describe if the events happened or not. Obviously, a craft landed in Rendlesham Forest at least once, and obviously an event happened in a nearby field. By the way, the other airbase, I had the name of it a moment ago. If it comes back to me, I'll mention the other airbase, but you'll know it if you go on the internet to find it. There was 2 of these airbases. Right, But from what we have worked out, the craft that landed was a scout ship. The mothership was in deep space at the time, although it was seen on one occasion. It was seen as a huge cigar-shaped object. It was an interdimensional craft. Both the mothership and the scout ship had been sent to investigate the large number of atomic weapons that were stockpiled in the bases. Oh, it mentions it here, the other one, of which there were 2. The majority of the weapons were kept in the Woodbridge site. So I suppose there was Rendlesham and then Woodbridge. They were close together anyway, that I do know. The provenance of the craft were those that we have described as human auric personality bundles. Now, if you don't know what that means, the Great White Brotherhood gave us a complete book called Auras, in which they're described. They're, I'm not going to explain it. You look it up in the book. You can find it as a PDF file if you haven't actually got the book. But they exist. Believe me, these strange beings exist. If you don't know what we refer, it mentions it. If you don't know to what we refer, please read our book on aliens that we gave you. These aliens, if we can thus refer to them, were and are deeply concerned by man incarnate toying with nuclear matter. When a nuclear bomb is exploded, it not only causes incalculable harm to planet Earth, but by the very nature of destroying atoms, which have auras, the act of destroying atoms affects dimensions and thus causes great harm in all the dimensions also. Life must be kept in balance, and it is not in man's gift to destroy randomly atoms which are part of the building blocks of life. Each time an atom is destroyed, if it were not replaced, the whole of existence would be affected, as each and every atom is essential to the balance of life. Thus, when an atomic bomb destroys atoms, God's archangels have to leap into action and recuperate new atoms from the 8th dimension to replace the destroyed ones. We thank God that the archangels are able to do this, because if even one atom was destroyed and not replaced, all life would cease. All is one, and every atom is an essential part of the fabric of life. To destroy even one atom, if it was not immediately replaced, would cause the oneness to be incomplete, and that would signal the demise of all life, both physical in the 6th dimension, which is where we are, and also its auras, and the other areas of life as important as physicality. So the beings which we refer to as personality bundles regularly visit nuclear sites and do certain acts to warn man not to explode the bombs. Sometimes they shut down missile launching sites. Sometimes they destroy the warheads. In this case, they appeared in the forest and in the skies to warn man that the air bases were under observation. We will just say that the authorities today have been contacted and the seriousness of destroying atoms has been explained to them. Thus, we hope nuclear weapons will never be used. On the odd occasion that a country is unwise enough to defy the advice given, action is immediately taken to destroy the missile. Now, it was mentioned that a binary code was transmitted to one of the soldiers. This was in part true. In fact, the code was impressed on his mind slightly later than the date of the actual event, but this was false information given to conceal the identity of the ships. The Secret Services concerned with investigating the incidents were already aware of the provenance of the ships and their reason for being there. Certain drugs were also administered to some of the soldiers in order to implant false memories. So we had this strange cat and mouse game going on. The personality bundles, aliens, decided to visit the bases and make the personnel aware that they, the aliens, were aware of the arsenal of nuclear weapons stockpiled on the bases. The Christmas period was chosen to mark the occasion and make it stand out more than a random date. At the same time, Secret Services were perfectly aware of the reasons the UFOs were there, but did all they could to cover up the event. That is why, even today, people scratch their heads and wonder what happened at the end of 1980. It's nearly finished. Mention was made of a mist in a field. This was etheric matter, rather like ectoplasm, that was formed so that certain orbs could transform their energy from purely astral matter to physical matter. An orb is always an intelligence. Thus, the orbs were astral beings observing what was going on. We have not got involved with the events much, except to give you an overview, describe the provenance of the visitors and the reasons for their presence. They were there to warn man of the dangers of detonating atomic bombs and to warn them that such behavior would not be tolerated. Okay, now that's the end of that. Now, I want, if I may, to tell you, it's a personal story in a way. Now, at one stage, I had a guide who said he was a Benedictine monk and lived in an abbey in the south of England many years ago. The monk's name was Father Ignatius, and for many months and years he helped me a lot. I have other guides now, but he's still there, and I still talk to him occasionally. But the name of the abbey that he lived in was called Blackthorn Abbey, which is a rather horrible name, but I found out that blackthorn is just another name for a fruit tree. I think they call them sloes, S-L-O-E, plural, put an S on the end. Anyway, I asked him about this abbey, and he told me a certain amount. But I went to my local library to try and find if I could see a book about it. And there, all of a sudden, sticking out from the from a bookshelf was a book called The History of Blackthorn Abbey. And I took it out, and you know, in library books you have to have things so that you can take them out and they can trace the books and so on. And I did all the necessary, and the librarian did the necessary and stamped the book and all that. And a couple of weeks later I took it back. Shortly after that I wanted to take it out again, and I couldn't find it. And the librarian looked all through the computer system, and this book had never existed in any part of the world. So I asked Father Ignatius about this, and this is what he told me, and I'm going to read word for word what he told me. If you're not interested in this, you can shut this bit off, but it interested me, so I thought it might interest other people. The process of producing books or any other objects in physicality that are not produced by conventional means is as follows. We decide, in the case of the book in question, to provide you with information to help answer your questions. In this case, about Blackthorn Abbey, which no longer exists. It was created and destroyed back in the days when Henry VIII was in power and decided to destroy many religious sites and at the same time murder the monks that lived in them. You should know this period of your history. Well, I was taught it at school. I don't know if it still is taught. Anyway, to return to the process of how we create physical books from spiritual information. We write the books in astral form, which, in this case, like all other books, are placed in the Akashic Record. From there, in the particular case of the book in question, we knew that you frequented a particular public library. So, quite simply, the book was made in astral form, complete with all the information in the front cover that made it resemble a conventional library book. From there, we pushed you, that's me, to visit the library and hunt for information on Blackthorn Abbey. Now, everything is a question of vibration, of frequency. So we prepared to reduce the frequency of this book from that of the upper fourth, to that of the sixth dimension, physicality, where you are. So we followed your movements as you perused the books in the relevant section of the library, and moments before you got to a particular bookcase, we reduced the frequency of the book to that of physicality and drew your attention to it. Let me turn the page over. We made it physical only seconds before you noticed it to ensure that no one else could check the book out before you. So you took the book home, read it, and eventually returned it to the library. From there, once it had been checked into the library, we altered its frequency again and returned it to the Akashic Record in the relevant dimension, the fourth dimension. So in effect, it disappeared from physicality. This process, which we could term to be apports, is not difficult when one knows how to alter frequencies. It is a spiritual process and is achieved by being of higher frequency than the object, at which point we can alter frequencies in a not dissimilar way that you use to move objects in physicality. The object disappears from one spot and reappears in another. I think what they're talking about is picking something up and moving it. So it disappears from here and reappears here. It seems so natural for us to do that, but apparently we're actually kind of moving it in some psychic way that I've never really understood. It is all a question of manipulating frequencies. You do this with such ease that you never question it. But in fact, as you move an object, you are moving it through frequencies, and the object actually alters due to the change in frequencies. And I've discussed this in another video about how aliens travel. You do this in your physical plane because you are of a higher frequency than the objects. So you can overcome the frequency of the object and move it through your dimension. We can do the same, but we can not only move an object, but alter its quiescent frequency from that of our dimension to that of your dimension. So it disappears from our dimension and reappears instantly in your dimension in what you call physical form. This was what was done to provide you with the information about Blackthorn Abbey that you sought. There's not much more to go. Concerning the area Blackthorn, once the abbey had been destroyed and the monks assassinated, so I suppose even this Father Ignatius had been assassinated by Henry VIII's troops, much of the neighbouring village was razed to the ground by Henry VIII's troops, and many of the villagers killed also. When the area was eventually returned to a semblance of peace, it was incorporated with a larger area, and the name Blackthorn became extinct. We will not say any more about the history of the abbey, nor of the area at this time, as we have answered the question you asked. And the question I asked was, how did the book appear suddenly in the library if it was not a real library book, which they've done their best to answer. Okay, so I'm going right back to the beginning and tell you that we have a new book out. It's called Linking with the Fourth Dimension. It's a long book, and each chapter deals with a different subject, and there's 33 chapters. I found it very interesting, and I hope you will too. Okay, you'll find it available in PDF form on our site, which is www.thegreatwhitebrotherhood, all one word, .org. www.thegreatwhitebrotherhood.org. O-R-G. Okay, you can get it in PDF form for free. It's available on a number of other platforms, and in a few days it should be out as a printed book on Amazon if you wish to buy it. We don't make any profit from it, only Amazon charges you their printing and transport costs. Okay, so I'll say goodbye at this point. Thank you for listening to me. I hope it wasn't too boring, and I look forward to coming back and talking to you again another day when I've got the time. Okay, thank you. Bye.